So out of our gratefulness as parents, Jolene and I took about 6 months, came across the idea of, since I am a car buyer, of buying up cars and fixing them up and giving them to mainly single moms. And it's just started going from there. One car became two, and two cars became three. And now here we are 7 years later, and we've given away 107 cars. We have our own building, and I have about 30 techs that work with me on Saturdays.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Keep the Change. We're so excited to have you guys back with us. I've been going solo quite a bit lately, and now I get an opportunity to really talk to friends and real humans. I don't have to hear myself speak anymore. And today is a repeat guest. This gentleman I met at Car Church. He's been on our podcast before. He's a founder of a nonprofit. He's a used car buyer at a Toyota dealership in Battle Creek, Michigan. And by the way, the Toyota dealership is called Sunshine Toyota. There ain't no sunshine in Battle Creek. I'm just saying. Maybe 1 month, 2 months a year, but Sunshine Toyota in Battle Creek. Great human, great father, great leader, a man of faith. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Brian Robbins. Woo!
Thank you. Hey, congratulations on your 200 episodes. That's amazing. And it's a pleasure to be on and all of that. And we're coming down to Arizona real soon. Hopefully we can catch up and see each other in person. So
yes, last time you were here, you came to our ministry on Monday night, and we're not going to necessarily be able to do that this trip that you're here. But that was so fun, man. It was so fun having you and your wife, Jolene, there and sharing you with us and allowing us to brag about our ministry. We're pretty proud of our ministry.
You should be.
I try to not be too prideful, but man, it's just been unbelievable what the grace of God has done. But let's talk about you, man. Where have you been? What got you to this level? Tell us about your nonprofit and just share with us about what got you from there to here.
Okay. I don't know how much you do the Bible app on your phone, but today's Bible app lesson was on Ecclesiastes, and it's kind of the verse where Solomon goes, it's all meaningless unless you have a fear of God and obey his commands. And I think that's big with me because a large part of my life, can't really say that I was a non-believer, but he was not front and center. And in 2017, my daughter was a junior in high school. And in a course of about a 6-month period, my academically gifted and athletically gifted daughter just lost strength and coordination and ended up being bedridden. And doctors were telling us one thing, like a mental doctor would say it's in her heart. A heart specialist would say that it was in her brain. And we just didn't know what to do. And so my wife took to praying, and she would just pray for hours. And my wife was a whole lot better at this than I was. She would pick up our daughter and carry her to the bathroom and bathe her and feed her and all of this stuff. And my daughter would have about 2 hours of meaningful mental ability during the day. It wasn't all bad. I have fond memories of sitting in my daughter's room painting with her while she was lying down on the carpet and stuff like that. But we didn't know what to do, and we finally had an appointment with the Mayo Clinic on a Tuesday in January of 2019. But about 4 days before that, we got a phone call from a friend of my wife's saying that they were having a prayer service down at their church, and they were going to try to do some healings, and could we show up? And we did, and the Holy Spirit showed up, and I really can't explain it much better than that. But in an instant, my daughter was back and running around. She has now completed college, and she is a 5th grade teacher in a neighboring city, and it just has all kinds of good things going on in her life. So out of our gratefulness as parents, seeing our daughter back to us, Jolene and I took about 6 months, came across the idea of, since I am a car buyer, of buying up cars and fixing them up and giving them to single women like my daughter who lacked mobility, mainly single moms. And it's just started going from there. One car became two, and two cars became three. And now here we are 7 years later, and we've given away 107 cars. We have our own building, and I have about 30 techs that work with me on Saturdays. So it's been a ride.
107.
Yep.
Last time I talked to you, you just hit 100. So congratulations on the 107.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I find that fascinating. I find that there's stories all the time, if we really pay attention, of how God uses our obedience. And you and I had already talked about this. We don't have any notes. We have no questions that we were going to ask each other. I just knew we would be guided, right? I wanted to talk about leadership and culture today, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that as well. But I'm just blown away by that because I can tell you that my wife and I, of course, operate a ministry. As you know, Brian, we've talked about it many times. You've been to our church and you've been giving us the opportunity to let us show you the ministry and what grace that God's put on us over this ministry. But what's interesting is when you first came to see us, we were doing maybe 30 or 40, maybe 50 people a week. And you talk about God's obedience. You talk about the power of a praying woman, your wife. You talk about listening to what God says. My daughter had been that person. She was kind of the model for the persons that you wanted to give cars to. And if you hadn't seen that in your daughter, it might not have sparked you. But God used that travesty and the recovery to say, now this is what I want to do. So it sounds like a big part of why Rings got started was your obedience. Would you say that would be a true story?
Absolutely, it was. Like I said, my daughter and my wife at praying for healing than I was. And so I was kind of left after my daughter came back saying, God, how can I show my gratitude, my thankfulness for this? And it was really about being obedient and by making, God not just a Sunday thing, but a center of every part of my life that really caused this to happen.
Wow. You know what? There's a song recently by Elevation Worship that's one of my favorite songs. It's called I'm Available. And I love that song. I love the tone of that song. I love that every time I hear it, I get tearful. And every time I hear it, I just know that God hears me when I say that. Two of my favorite scriptures are Deuteronomy 28, which talks about when you obey and follow the grace, then God will take care of you. And also Psalm 91, which talks about how we can trample on scorpions and snakes. Now, I don't understand any of that. All I know is when God speaks, I've got to listen. And I find that's definitely true in our ministry about I told you this offline, but I don't know that I've said it on this podcast because we're always talking leadership, but I think it's good to talk about. Somebody listening needs to hear this, right? So I think June. Yeah. No, probably in February, I interviewed a guy named Malinga on this podcast. Now, Malinga owns a church in Zambia, Lusaka, Zambia, called Christ Life Church. And Molinga was a guy who actually got thrown in prison. Go back and listen to the podcast. He's been on a couple times. He got thrown in prison, not by anything he did, just because he was hanging with a guy that had been in prison. And they thought they were co-conspirators. Molinga didn't even know the guy. He ended up going to prison and it was supposed to be 10 years. He ended up getting out in 2 years because of the fact that guy that he went in prison with, he was dying, and the guards knew that Malinga wasn't with him. So the guards said, don't take care of him. Don't do anything for him. And Malinga couldn't do it. So he started caring for this guy, even though the guy framed him for his own freedom, that Malinga took care of him, lifted him back to health. When this guy who tried to frame Malinga got healthy, he said, I need to talk to the warden. He went to the warden and said, Malinga had nothing to do with me being here. I hitched a ride from him. When the warden heard it, a few weeks later, Malinga was out. But the reason I tell you that story is because after I interviewed him that second time, I heard that a group of men were going to Africa and working at Malinga's church for a week. And I raised my hand to go. But I didn't. I went home and I said, hey, Mary, guess what? I'm going to Africa. And it wasn't like let me go talk to my wife first. I went home and said, I'm going to Africa. But I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to be controlling. God told me to go. I went. It was amazing. I got to speak on stage. I got to be on Zambia TV and I got to do a couple breakouts. But what happened when we got back is the same thing that you said, Brian. There was a directive and you were obedient to the directive. I heard the directive and I was obedient to the directive. And the directive was go and talk recovery in Africa. Really? And
Wow.
I did it. And guess what happened to our ministry? It doubled and it continues to grow every week. So I think it's just the powerful piece of listening to what God says, right?
Oh,
And
that's a beautiful story. That is awesome.
and it's just really what it's about. So, what is some of your greatest lessons that you've learned from your ministry? What are some of share with some of the incredible stories
Sure.
of the people that have gone that have gotten a gift of a new car from your
Well,
ministry?
well, the very first car that we gave away is truly something special. It had been through a hailstorm. We gave it to a lady who was driving her car and she went to put on the brakes. Brakes didn't work. It went right through a stop sign, missed stoplight, missed two, three cars. And the mechanic said, this car is not worth fixing. So we were able to give her car. It was not, it was not a brand new car. She called it Ugly Betty, but she used that car during COVID to start a cookie company. And she would go around in Ugly Betty and deliver the cookies to her customers. Found herself a really nice young man. A couple of years later, she was back on her feet. They bought a house together. They got married. She gave the car back to us. We repaired it up again, gave it away. So car number one actually became car number 27. And that, put that in 2026. Her ex-husband, Doug, is now one of my most faithful volunteers because he respects what and is thankful for what I did for his son back in 2019 when we gave away the first car.
Wow, that's crazy. So you must have like 107 stories, man.
Every story is special.
Yeah. Tell us about some of these because I think what happens, I don't know about you, but I love serving. I know you do. I don't say I don't know about you. That's not true. I know you love to serve. And I know that isn't always the part where you get a paycheck. The cool thing with what you're a buyer and you get that's fun and you get to do that. In your nonprofit, you get to change the world. In my ministry, I get to change the world. And hopefully in my business, I get to change a life one person at a time because I get to coach people, right?
Yeah.
But there's nothing like that. And I think what you and I hear all the time is angry people. We hear, a lot of divisiveness in the world. We hear, you're not, I'm a Christian, you're not, so I don't believe, I don't like you as well, or you're a Muslim, I'm a Christian, and we can't get along. And I'm just reminded whether it's the coaching business, the buying a car business, the giving a car away business, the ministry business, that the thing that all of us, no matter who you are listening to this, there's one word that defines all of it, that defines everything we are. And that's that four-letter word, love. I get to see love every time I coach somebody. I've got the best friends that I've coached. It's unbelievable. They tell me things they wouldn't tell anybody else, and I'm honored for that. I get to see love in our ministry with these broken people, man. So tell us about the love stories that you get to see on a daily basis that have really changed Brian Robbins, man. Not only has it changed them, but I believe God uses this stuff to change us too.
Yeah. Well, First Peter 4:10 says that each of us have been given a gift, and as our spiritual act of worship, we should share that gift and use that gift to serve others.
Mm,
And that has been with us since the beginning. And this isn't even somebody who received a car from me, but I have a mechanic that works with me that the second week he was with us, his wife of 50 years straight up died of a brain aneurysm just like that. And I really thought that he was going to disengage, that he was just going to say, Lord, I'm ready. But he jumped into Rings Ministries. And 6 weeks ago, I had my shoulder replaced. And he was at my house every day to pick me up and take me out to do my errands and do my work for me since I
Mm.
couldn't use my arm. And he's just a lovely guy. And I'm very excited that now we have our own garage. We've been working out of different different friends' garages. Now we have our own, that we have a place where recipients can come back and talk to us, and we can ask, hey, what's God doing in your life? We can put their car up on a hoist to make sure that everything's running well. And so, that's a big thing for us. Very few of my success stories are people that I've had long lasting relationships with,
Mhm.
because I give them a car and I say, okay, God bless.
Mhm.
And, I pray for them after they leave. Our next girl, if I can just say that, because you were saying I'm a Christian and you're not a Christian, type things like that. Our next girl is a girl that has been faithfully waiting for a car for 2 years, and she's Hindi. She came over to Battle Creek without any family whatsoever. She was able to earn her master's degree, and she works at the local college here, and she lives in an apartment building right next to the college. So all she does is work and walk to work and back, and she's dependent on friends to get them to church, to get her to church, and friends to get her to the grocery store. And she has done the work to get herself a Michigan driver's license. And the next car that we finish will go to her so that she can help pay it forward, just as people have done in her life. So I'm very excited for that car to get out the gate, so to speak.
So what's so fascinating is how do you find your people, man? I mean, do they just show up? What I mean, how do you find them? I mean, everybody needs a car that doesn't have a car, but how do you find your people? How do you pick, okay, they're going to get 107.
Well, we have very good relationships with about 10 to 20 different nonprofits here in Battle Creek, and 10 or so churches in Battle Creek who know what we do and know what we're looking for. And when they come forward and say, hey, we know of somebody, they, for lack of a better word, they get serious consideration. We also have an online process where they can, where they can apply. But when you apply online, what's best is those letters of recommendation, so we can read them and fall in love with the recipient. And and that works a whole lot better than somebody just coming into my office on a Tuesday afternoon and saying, hey, I want a car.
Right, right. So there's a absolute process. Now, are you most of the cars you give away in the Michigan, you're in the, are you, or let me see, you're southeast, southwest Michigan, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So are most of them from your area?
Probably 100 out of 107 of them. We did give a car to a mother in Missouri whose child had contracted a virus that made her a quadriplegic, and we just happened to have an accessibility ban on our hands, and we were able to give it to the mother-in-law, who drove it down to the lady, and she's been using it ever since. So
Right on.
yeah.
What have you learned from all this? I mean, and tell me what it's a couple of questions. What have you learned and how has it changed you as a man?
Oh my goodness. What I think I've learned is that, 'cause silly old cars do silly old things, and not everything is fixed on the very first time you try, but God does work it out. And God does bring you these people into your life for a reason. And so I think I've learned to trust in the Lord and know that John 10:10, he has an abundant life, not perfect. It's kind of, sometimes it's kind of wild, but he has an abundant life that he's called us to. And if you just hang on and be obedient, the ride's kind of fun.
Yeah. So when you think in terms of your path through all this, you met your wife where?
At the church that we both grew up in.
Okay, right on. And you guys now work together, right? And is she part of Rings as well?
Very much so.
Right
Very
on.
much so.
So you
She
got
she is the solid to that keeps my balloon of myself from blowing away.
amen. That's awesome. And you have your daughter and how many other kids?
I have a son who is the finance manager here at the dealership.
Right on. Right on. So when you look and somebody at some point says, this is who Brian is, how would you want to be thought of in terms of who you are?
Oh my goodness. remembered as somebody who loved what they did, loved the people around them, and from time to time, use my gifts to serve and enrich and glorify, God's kingdom.
So, how you've had some things, I won't get specific unless you want to, but you've had some things that you've had to overcome and physically, you just told us about the shoulder surgery. What is your mindset? You mentioned at one point that your daughter getting sick really had to do with your faith today and seeing the healing that happened. It really had to do with your faith today. Unfortunately, not everybody has that healing happen. You
Yep.
guys were blessed in many ways for some reason. There's a lot of people that have gone to Africa and haven't had their ministries double, guarantee it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, how do you tell us about that journey of how that experience really made you go deeper with him? And what's that relationship? It's obviously you mentioned First Peter 4:10, John 10:10. You've got scripture that you live by. How has that relationship just exploded with you in the last few years to allow you to be such a conduit for God's giving? Because the reality is that you are walking in the path like Jesus of just being a servant, servant, servant. And how has those experiences in your past helped you overcome your physical and your emotional and go to another level spiritually?
Wow. You are absolutely right that I have been fortunate to have prayer answered in the best possible way that I could hope for. But I all of this I think has made me slow down and make it important to spend time with the Lord. And I found that journaling really works for me.
Mm.
And if you go to my house, I'll have a stack, this high of journals that are filled up, and not every not every page is pure biblical gold. Some of it's just, oh my goodness, Lord. So I just think that it's made a relationship where, instead of looking at myself and trying to fix things on my own, I'm constantly, pointing up to the Lord and saying, what do you want in this situation? And being willing to accept the outcomes.
So it's so interesting. My world changed. Well, definitely changed Africa too, but there's moments, so many moments. 41 years ago when I got sober, it changed. It changed when I met my wife, coming up on 11 years of marriage in May. It changed when I got to be in front of my kids at our 10-year anniversary and look at all my kids and tell them that I pray for them every day. It changed. You know what's so interesting is last year in my business, it was one of those boom, 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 boom
Sure.
years, right? But everything else was perfection. And what I learned about all that this year is 2026 has started where I've already beat last year already. But if I stop now, I'm in trouble. But it already has. And when I look at that, even though last year wasn't business wise, it was what it was, but I was grateful every single day. So, you talked about your journal. I've got a journal right next to me that was given to me by my friend John Roberts. John Roberts is the general manager and general sales manager at Roberts Motors in Alton, Illinois. He's an incredible, incredible man. And he's a friend. He's also a client. And it's really cool when you can call a client a friend, right? That to me, I'd like to be able to, if I had 20 clients, I want to be best friends with all of them. And I'm kind of picky on clients because of that. I want great relationships with the people because they require a lot of me and I want to make sure I serve them to the best I can. I really mean that. But John, and I found this out later, reached out to my wife at Christmas time and asked my wife what he could get me for Christmas. Now he's probably going to listen to this podcast and he's probably lifting weights while he's listening to it because I know his routine. And she said, well, I think he could use a journal. And John said, well, I've never given anybody a journal. He went and got me the best journal I've ever had. It's leather cover on it. And I love that journal. And I use that journal every day. Now, I might write 2 lines in that journal, but I use that journal every day. And some of the questions I like to write in there the fruit of the spirit and where I am in terms of the gift of the fruit of the spirit. And I also like to write these questions every day that if you've been on the podcast, you're going to roll your eyes because you've heard it before. Number one, what I do right. I write that in there every day. Number two, what did I learn? Number three, what must I change? And number four, what's my role in the way in the world today? But before I even do that, I write down 5 things I'm grateful for every day, every single day.
Mm.
5 things. And it changes my countenance. There's no way talking about last year, which was, again, who cares? Because again, if the rest of my world is 100%, I mean, I overcame some physical things that they had to cut something out of me. I overcame that. I've lost some weight. Health things have come around, and I'm feeling great, better than I have in 20 years. But all that stuff is great. Who cares about business? It'll come around because of the grace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if last year I had the best year money wise that I'd ever had, but everything else wasn't very good, it wouldn't have been a very good year. But considering that I've just had so much grace and so many blessings, I wouldn't trade anything of that happened last year, all those things, for anything that didn't happen last year.
Mm.
And I think looking at the light takes us away from the dark. And I think as leaders, it's our responsibility to figure out where the light is because people are looking at us to be the light. If you look back on people that have had the most influence on Brian Robbins, either in leadership or in terms of their walk, or maybe it's not even a brother or sister in faith. It's just somebody that you just really admired because of their values and how they lived their life or who they were as a father or husband. Who would that be for you?
Oh, there's so many. God truly blessed me with a woman of God that just surprises me every day. On her love for the Lord just seems to know no ends. I would say that Tony Dungy, the old football coach, and the books that he's written have really affected me. And in fact, the very first journal I ever did was one that he and his son-in-law made together, and that kind of got me on the hook. But I have lots of men around me in rings that are certainly better mechanics than I have, and to see them show up, Saturday after Saturday, and maybe they're not the most gifted public speakers, but they can certainly wrench a car, and to see them faithfully, wrench so that they can love on a woman in need just one time when they meet them, and then move on to the next woman that they'll serve one time is
Mm.
just amazing for me.
So what is it about? I'm not gonna let you off the hook on this one. What's the thing about your wife that really had so much influence on you? And tell me about that. You guys are your kindred spirits, but what was it about her that has had such a big impact on you?
Well, I would say that she is a woman of prayer and a woman of worship. And, I go to bed, she's a night owl, and I go to bed before her most of the time. And I'll roll her over in bed and I'll see her on her knees at the end of the bed praying for, and I know what she's praying for. She's praying for her family and for, God's kingdom. And then I also see her worship. I know that she will take a break from whatever she's doing and worship 3 times a day. And it'll get on her. She'll get on herself if she doesn't do it 3 times a day, if she only had
Wow.
2 good worship sessions. And she is constantly trying to be, you know, in the presence of the loving spirit of the Lord, and
Mm,
the faithfulness that He has shown all of us.
mm,
And she just works that. It'll say in the Bible that the children of Israel tore their cloaks in guilt, and there's some sweatshirts around our house that have been torn because she was so in prayer from time to time.
that's so good. Thank you for that. You know what? I love
She's
hearing
cute as a button, so there you go.
that. Well, and I get when with Mary, every morning we get up and Mary's the first one to go work out. So I mean, she goes to works out right away, and I'll go from the bed to the coffee pot to the couch and start my God time. I went on my knees first, but then it's the pot, and then it's the couch. And about a half hour later, after she works out, she'll sit down next to me. And the moments of doing that just set the stage for our whole relationship. I mean, we might not even say anything, but to be in that same room and to be just connected at that deep level, I'm in all of our love story. And my wife, I always say my wife taught me how to love because I didn't know, man. I didn't know what it meant to love this much. I didn't know what it meant to be a good man in marriage. And she's taught me love. And thus I've learned to be a great man in marriage. And again, things happen to us, gifts happen to us that we don't deserve. And she's absolutely the best gift I've ever been given that I didn't have something to do with, right? Is like
Right.
just incredible grace. They the fruits of the spirit in Matthew, he talks about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There's a book that was written by Malcolm Buckingham, and that book is called Love Does. And what he found was in that book, what he found when doing studies is the companies that ran their businesses. Now, what this wasn't a religious book. It's not. They could have been Christians. They could have been again some other religion, but of course, this talks about Christian love, and that's what Matthew's talking about here. But the businesses that ran their business with love where they loved their employees, they served their employees, they cared about their employees, they connected to their employees. They just were now I'm not going to say family because there's good and bad families, but let's say they were a family that loved each other. When the employees loved where they worked, the profits went through the roof, which is crazy, right? It's crazy because I mean, we don't love to get profits. We love to love. But what happens is if someone loves where they're working, if the culture is strong, if there's that kind of values, if there's that kind of servitude, people that they attach to that. And by attaching to that results in more profit. I just think that's fascinating. So I know for me, in Second Corinthians, it talks about the love chapter. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not boast. I know for me, if I can live in that, then I know I'm becoming a better human. I'm a better leader. I'm a better coach. So part of my journaling is I go through all of these. I don't do it every week, every day. I do it about once a week. And I'll rate myself on love, 1 to 10. And I'll rate myself on joy. That's one of the things I do in my journaling. And I'll rate myself on where am I in terms of peace. And I'll rate myself in terms of patience. Uh-oh. And I'll rate myself 1 to 10 on kindness, on goodness, on faithfulness, on gentleness and self-control. And I'll look at all of it. And it gives me an idea of what I get to work on. But I'm walking toward walking like being like him by walking in the fruits of the spirit. And if I can get any better on a weekly basis because I took that time, I know that's just him working through me. It's just so powerful.
I
What
love your assessment. I think that keeps you because you don't go away from God just all of a sudden. Boom, it's little by little, and I think with your assessment, you keep yourself on track.
Well, even in coaching, man, not every one of my coaching clients are Christians, but they all want to love and they want to be loved, right? And
Yeah.
I would start off my coaching by what do you want out of this? What's your expectations? And first of all, I ask them who they are. And then what do you want out of this? And walk me through how you think this is going to look in so many months if your needs are met. How do you think that's going to look? And that's kind of the essence for all of our coaching, walking in the path. They're here and they want to be there. And we're going to find out how we walk them through that together. I'm not going to tell them they're going to do it on their own, that they get from point A to point B. But what I've found with most one on one coaching, Brian, is peace comes out of it.
Yeah.
Peace. That they're more, that sooner or later, one of these things that we talked about, the fruits of the spirit, they're better at in the building than when they first started. It's really weird, right? We're not going for that, but that's at the end of it. I'll look and say, wow, this person really has their self controls better. Or this person's really got a lot more patience. They learn to walk around the block instead of reacting. Or this person's loving. They're patient and kind with people. or this person, because of the fact that they have promised themselves something and they do what they promise, now they have joy. And it's just, yeah, it's been very powerful for me to work on me so I can help others work on themselves. If there's one thing that you would say that, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're walking a path that is just you're struggling, what's some advice that you can give somebody that, because you went from not being as much there to now being deep in your faith? Maybe somebody's just really had some struggles. Maybe they've had some curveballs. What would you tell them to help them get to the other side of the darkness?
Oh my goodness. Oh, you are such a talented minister to people's souls. I'm sure this is nowhere near as good as what you could come up with, but I would say maybe read a couple chapters of Proverbs and then go out and do something for somebody else.
Love
Get
that.
out of your own funk.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think if anything else, spend time. If you're dating someone, you're spending time with them. And then yet, if we're really trying to know God and we don't spend time with them, how are we going to really know him? Right? Took me, I spent 30 days in the woods trying to get to know who God was and really understanding the Bible. Right?
Sure.
And there's so much wisdom in the Bible. And I think you're right on talking about wisdom with Proverbs. Read a proverb a day for every day. Now there's 30 Proverbs, there's 30 days. Just do that every day for 6 months and start looking at the change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ask yourself, what can I do for somebody else today? When we're in a funk, because we live in a world where, mental health is a struggle. When you're in a funk, go do something for somebody else. Get out of your own junk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How have you become such a good father? What's the thing that you've done to be just a great father?
Oh, I think whatever your kids show an interest towards, you should become the biggest fan of that.
Ooh, I love that. You mean you don't try to change them?
If they like volleyball, learn all the rules of volleyball. Learn who the greats are. All
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yep. That's good. If they know volleyball, learn the greats of volleyball. I love it. I love it. My kids all played hockey. I became a hockey fan. That's for
Oh,
sure.
what a great time to be a hockey fan.
Oh my gosh. Don't you love it? USA. That's
Yep.
beautiful.
Mhm.
That's great. Well, I got to tell you, like always, just spending time together means everything to me. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And thank you for giving us your wisdom. Again, congratulations on the ministry. Congratulations on who you are as a husband and father. And thank you for sharing the things that allow you to get centered and walk a path hand in hand with God and with Jesus in this path. So bless you, brother. And I so appreciate you being on Keep the Change podcast.
Thank you, Bart. And we will see you soon.
Yes, sir. Let's hang out. Let's break bread.
Absolutely.
See you, buddy.
See ya.